All right, well, welcome everybody. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Robert Young II, fifth generation of the Young family. We have Matt Michael, our winemaker, with us today. Say hi, Matt.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
So this is something we haven't done in really since the COVID days. Me and Matt did quite a handful of these, and we understand that we have so many of our members on the East Coast, even those locally, a lot of the locals I get to see fairly often, but those that are out of state, I do not. So we figured, why not do a virtual tasting? You can open up some of the wines from your shipments, ask some questions, and we can fill you in on a little bit of what's going on here at Robert Young. So I see some wines opened already. So if you don't already have the wine open, please do. We are going to taste today our Alexander Valley Chardonnay. We're going to do a preview of our Pinot Blanc, which is brand new for us. We've been growing for many years, so that's pretty exciting. Our Cabernet Franc, our Alexander Valley Cab, our beloved flagship, the Scion, and then a new release as well that we're bringing back called the Petit Verdot. I encourage you as well, if they're to put your wine down in the chat, what you're enjoying, just so we know. We don't want to waste, your time today, because I know it's precious, and we'd hate to, talk for a while on a wine that you guys aren't enjoying. But if you stick around to the end as well, we're going to do a little offer for you as well to restock if you're interested in doing so. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We're going to get into the wines here. We're going to start with our Chardonnay. And as we go, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We'll answer those as we go forward.
Great. Thanks, Rob. First up is our 2021 Alexander Valley Chardonnay. I have a glass of it right here, which I've pre-poured.
And Matt, I guess before you get going,
Yeah.
because everyone's gonna see this picture here. So we have a picture, obviously, Matt and I. Dan is not here today with us virtually, but I wanted to point him out and us. Many of you know we're a multi-generational family business. We have all members with us today. Of course, I'm not going to bore you with the 167 years story, because you've heard it before. However, my grandfather, Robert, he had 4 kids. My dad, my uncle, my 2 aunts, that all 4, they live and work on the property. And they're the scions, if you will. They're the ones that came together, start the winery, and they make all the decisions. They're the board. And as that generation is getting older, we need to have some of the next generation come in and take over the business. And I, of course, have been in the business for quite some time, since I was a kid. The past couple of years, I've transitioned to hospitality manager. So I oversee direct to consumer, the tasting room, of course. I've hosted many of you, but now the wine club and event side as well. Matt Michael, our winemaker, he actually married into our family. So for all of you, you do not have to worry about the wines, changing or getting that put in the winemaking into different hands, which is great. So he married 6th generation Nicole, so my cousin's kid, who's actually older than me. And then Dan, who runs our vineyard, he is a great grandnephew of my grandmother Gertrude, so Robert's wife, Robert Sr. So we're the kind of the next generation of leadership taking over the business. And you have some of the family pictured here, not all of us. But we were just recognized just about a month ago by the Sonoma County Farm Bureau as Farm Family of the Year, which is pretty incredible. And we're honored to still be in business and share this legacy with the rest of you. So now I will hand it over to Matt to talk about, the wines.
Great. Thanks, Rob. I have a glass of our 2021 Alexander Valley Chardonnay open right now. I saw in the comments that I was throwing it back, and I actually was having a little sip. It's quite enjoyable. A little bit about our Chardonnay. Most of you know the story, but for those maybe few that don't, it really starts out in the vineyard with our clone 17. Um, there's a story behind it. It's a really interesting story. Jim Young actually worked in the 80s to propagate our own clone, and it's known in the industry as a Robert Young clone or clone 17. And that took quite a few years to do. He did it with UC Davis, and what he essentially did was isolate a new clone of Chardonnay that was different than anything else that existed out there. And we went through a number of trials with UC Davis, picking the proper clone for this area. And so some of the things that the clone does for us is it creates a really concentrated, rich Chardonnay, and it tends to grow particularly well out in this part of Alexander Valley. As many of you know, there's a lot of heat out here in the valley, and it can get quite warm. Our saving grace is those really cool mornings where the fog comes in and keeps that acid intact. But in the lineup, our Alexander Valley Chardonnay was our flagship. So when Fred Young, Robbie's dad, decided that he wanted to start a winery because other wineries like Chateau St. Jean were having such success with our Robert Young clone of Chardonnay, he said, I'd love to just pull a little bit of our best fruit apart and really have something to showcase for our brand, for ourselves. So he worked with Dick Arrowood in the beginning to craft a style that really was appropriate for this area of Alexander Valley. So because of our warmth, because of our heat, we tend to get a Chardonnay that expresses itself with more like golden delicious apples, ripe tropical fruit. And so it sort of mirrors perfectly if you age it in barrels. And so we do a barrel ferment, barrel age style. And a lot of you guys know this, but our Alexander Valley Chardonnay is sort of the perfect balance of that. So I'm going to smell it right now. But I get a lot of ripe pineapple, lemon curd, orange blossom. And those exotic flavors come from the fruit, but they're accentuated by the barrel aging. So when you get this long barrel aging maturation process, it really sort of brings all of those to the top and really accentuates it. And then you get a creaminess and a richness in the balance of the wine, the flavor of the wine. So that's sort of our flagship wine, the Alexander Valley Chardonnay. It's aged for 18 to 20 months. It's a pretty long time, but what it does is it really kind of fattens out the creaminess of the wine and really accentuates some of those flavors. So we also have a Clone 17 Chardonnay. That is sort of a pullback where you're focusing more on the fruit and less on the oak. And then, of course, you guys know our barrel select, which is it's more about the toasty, hedonistic part of the wine with the barrels in it. So a little bit about this 2021. It just got these really golden, delicious apples, almost like grilled
Picture
pear.
it, you can tell.
Sorry, what's that? Somebody's unmuted there in the really golden, delicious apples, grilled pears, pineapple, rich caramel, and you get that little bit of that vanilla bean and creme brulee in there. This is a wine that historically shows well long down the road. I was talking with Robbie the other day, and when I first started here, we did a 10-year vertical on our Chardonnays, and the year 10 was drinking just as well as the year 1. So we're known for that ageability in these wines as well. Any questions on the wine? You guys just like drinking it? Tell me something you guys have on your mind. Let's see, we got any questions from Rob?
I have no questions.
Okay, great. So that's our Alexander Valley Chardonnay. It's such a nice kind of in the middle wine between our Clone 17 and the Barrel Select. For me, this wine really screams like scallops, creamy fettuccine, just a lot of grilled chicken. Like when I'm grilling at home with a barbecue, this is the wine I have out. Nice chill on it, just delicious. And we chose a couple cheeses to pair with it. And if you guys have those cheeses with you, Gruyere or Brie, I recommended these because I think there's a nice creaminess in both those cheeses that really complements well with this Chardonnay. So when I think of like what sort of cheese I want with Chardonnay, I'm really looking for something creamy. So the Gruyere has that kind of full-bodied, sort of creamy, almost nutty kind of flavor texture to it. And for me, it brings out that ripe fruit in the wine. So if you have Gruyere with you right now, take a little bite of it and then take a sip of the Chardonnay and see how those things work together. What I always get is the cheese really starts to bring out more of the fruit notes in the wine, and it really complements it well with the creaminess. Now, Brie, everyone knows Brie, and that's sort of a subtle kind of nutty, and it can be super creamy depending on what sort of Brie you get. But for me, it really brings out the fruit notes in Chardonnay. And it's something that with Chardonnay, particularly style where you have a lot of oak on it, it really kind of helps bring that fruit up to the forefront. So if you have those right now, take a little bite and a little sip of the Chardonnay and see how they play with each other in their mouth. For me, it's those are both complementing styles of pairing. So you're not contrasting one thing against the other. You have a creamy, rich Chardonnay and a creamy cheese, and those things are really complementing each other, richening it out and making it really nice and rich in the mouth.
So Matt, we do have a question actually. The difference between the clone and the Alexander Valley Chardonnay.
Yeah,
Stylistically, and
absolutely.
probably the how it's aged, because it is very different.
Yeah, for sure. So the Clone 17 Chardonnay, that launched when I was here, and I thought it was interesting that we had our own clone of Chardonnay, but we didn't talk about it that much unless it came up in the Alexander Valley Chardonnay, we would talk about it. But I really wanted to highlight the clone because it's unique to this property. It's unique to Robert Young. We're one of two clones that are recognized in California in Chardonnay, the Wente clone, which you may have heard of, and the Robert Young clone 17 that are uniquely California Chardonnay clones. And so part of what I wanted to do with Clone 17 was showcase what it's like without the oak. So Alexander Valley has a part of it that is a oak component that has caramel, vanilla, butterscotch. That's the oak part of the wine, and sometimes that overshadows a little bit of the fruit in the wine. So the Clone 17, what we do is we use steam or water bent barrels, and those barrels are much more gentle. So when you think about aging wine for a long period of time in those barrels, what it does is it gives you really lifts the fruit and accentuates it. And for me, it pushes the fruit into like a stone fruit. So think of like white peach, nectarine. Sometimes I even get like dried mango, but really pushes it in that direction. And you don't get a lot or very really any of that kind of caramel butterscotch. You may get a touch of light vanilla and baking spice, but really that wine, the Clone 17, is about the fruit part of the clone. And so we're really trying to showcase that. So it's a much more gentle expression of the Chardonnay, really focusing on the fruit. And that's probably the difference between that and the Alexander Valley. The Alexander Valley has, I would say, a balance between the oak and the fruit. And the fruit on the Alexander Valley, to me, has more of a grilled. So think of taking a peach and putting it on the grill, or taking maybe a pear and putting it on the grill. You get that sort of caramelized part of that fruit. And so you're getting sort of a difference there. And for me, the Clone 17 really shows the fruit part of it in a very kind of tropical way. It's very, very appealing. And the barrel select is really just about the toastiness and the oak part of it. And the fruit is sort of, I would say, subdued a little bit more. You're really showcasing that kind of creamy caramel butterscotch part of the wine. So there's sort of a flavor in there for everyone. I think as you go up the lineup, they're all really great expressions of Chardonnay, and three completely different expressions. And I wouldn't say that one is any better than the other one. I think they just sort of each one fits a niche. But this Alexander Valley Chardonnay to me is sort of the quintessential Alexander Valley Chardonnay. This style was done for a long time very poorly, and I think when it's done right, it's well integrated, and you have a nice crisp acidity that balances the fruit and the oak, and you should have a nice creaminess there. And it's not too heavy, it's not too oaky. It's just sort of the right balance between everything. So
It's
I hope
my
that helps.
favorite wine in the portfolio. I get that asked actually quite a bit. They're like, "What, Rob? What's your favorite wine?" And they always think it's Cabernet, but if I was stuck on a desert island, it would be the Chardonnay.
I would agree with you there, Rob, for sure.
All right.
So
Pinot Blanc.
Pinot Blanc. Okay, this is a brand new one for us. This is exciting. I'm really excited about this wine. We have actually had Pinot Blanc on the property. These vines go back to 1989 when they were planted. And Chateau Saint Jean actually made a number of really, really lovely vineyard designates off our property with Pinot Blanc grapes. And it's just something that we, in large, just didn't pay much attention to at the winery. And I'm not sure why. I think it makes a really, really lovely wine. The difference between Pinot Blanc and Chardonnay is that Pinot Blanc is, I would say, more medium bodied. So it can be light even sometimes to medium body. It's got a more crisp acidity. So I'd encourage you guys, if you have it with you now, to open it and try it, especially after you've had the Chardonnay, you'll notice a real difference in the body and texture. Um, and it tends to be a little bit more elegant and neutral aromatically. So think of like fresh melon, apple blossom, um, pear, things like that. Sort of Chardonnay-esque in nature, but not quite as intense. And it typically doesn't have as much oak on it. So we really do is get this freshness with the wine and this sort of texturally more medium body. So it's a lot more approachable, I think, when you want something a little bit more tame than Chardonnay. Um, Background of Pinot Blanc, kind of cool. It's actually a point mutation of Pinot Noir. So the Pinot grape is known to point mutate a lot. What that means is it just mutates and mutates and creates new stuff. So Pinot Blanc was actually a point mutation on a Pinot Noir vine. So if you're looking at this vine, right, you've got all these canes up with these red fruit, and then all of a sudden one cane is there and it's just got white clusters on it. That's a point mutation. It mutated from a red Pinot Noir to Pinot Blanc. That was then selected and it became its own variety. So there's also another version called Pinot Gris, which is sort of has a pinkish hue to it. So those are all from the same family, believe it or not. And so Pinot Blanc is in nature, I think, light-bodied like Pinot Noir and has just a very nice subtle creaminess to it. I love Pinot Blanc. I think it's such a fun wine when you just want to have something that's enjoyable. You don't want to think about it a lot, and you really want something that's in the middle. It's got a nice crisp acidity. It's medium light body. Just really fun. And we do this a little differently. So we age it like our Chardonnays for a long time on oak, about 20 months. And that's not typical. So a lot of expressions that you'll see from Pinot Blanc will have either be aged in stainless steel or they'll be aged in barrels for 3 to 6 months. And so really what we wanted to do with this wine was give it a little bit more texture and creaminess and a little bit more body, but still have it be sort of the essence of Pinot Blanc, if that makes sense. So this is a new wine for us, first vintage, first release. We're super excited about it. I think it's going to be a really fun wine for everyone and a nice kind of detour from Chardonnay. This can be like your Wednesday night wine or something, but I think it's going to be a really fun wine. And I think with that, there's a little kind of side note with this story is that it was actually our Malone and Pinot Blanc are planted right next to each other in the vineyard. And for a long time, our Malone was designated as Pinot Blanc until someone from UC Davis, a team of viticulturists, came through and they were like, actually, some of that Pinot Blanc is Malone. And so we had to then split up that block with our 16 rows of Malone. So this was apparently a very common thing in the late 80s when a couple nurseries got wrong growing material and they thought it was Pinot Blanc, but it was actually Malone. So We have now since incorporated both of those varietals in that block in our portfolio now. So we make both the Malone and the Pinot Blanc. Very interesting wines. I think it just showcases what Alexander Valley can do with some of these white wines. So I hope you guys like it. I think it's really fun. I think it's going to be a fun one to have on this in the summertime, summer months coming up. It's going to be great.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
So I wanted to tell you guys just a little bit about other stuff. Sorry, my my mouse is very sensitive. What's going on here at Robert Young? And before I get into our replant, we're doing a very large replant that is the first one we've done in about 30 years. But a little background on our vineyard. So we're actually one of the largest family-owned vineyards in the Alexander Valley. We have 448 acres. Typically, when it's fully planted, there's 317 an acre planted in vines, and we only keep the best 7% for our wines now. So Matt, alongside Dan, they will work together to pick the best of the best, and they will farm that for premium grapes, whereas everything else can be more commercial. You water it more, you get a larger yield. So these vines, we pick like the crowns of our blocks. You're getting vines that are more stressed out. The berries are smaller. It's more concentrated. It's a more complex fruit that'll make a better wine. And those go into the wines for Robert Young. And of course, you can't get our wines anywhere else. They're only sold right here. But our replant, we just started this. Matt can, I think, correct me on the date, but I think we did a vineyard back in 2022, let's say. And usually the lifespan for vines is around 25, 30, maybe 35 years. And after that, the vines start to decline in overall fruit quality, also yield, because there's a lot of diseases, cancers, if you will, that kill the vines. And then every 30 years, you got to rip out vines and plant new ones. So you can see pictured there. That's actually out in our field. If you're looking directly out the Scion House lawn, there's piles out there that we've piled all the vines. We bulldozed them, and they got burned actually this winter. And then the other picture of the dirt there, that's a vineyard back behind the Scion House on the hillside. And then we have some new vines in a vineyard we just planted. But this is just a natural life cycle that every 30 years we're ripping out old vines and we're planting new ones. And once we get through it, we have about 150 acres of the 317 in the ground. We have a lot of bare acres right now, which is just the way it is. It doesn't look as pretty, but it's just kind of like rolling hills of pasture now in some areas. But we still have views of the vines all across the Scion House. But this is something we've been working on for a very, very long time. Takes a lot of work. It's a big investment. But here in the next couple years, next year, 26, 27, we'll have some brand new vines planted, and we'll start sourcing from those and pivot from the older ones. So I know Matt has already explained to me the quality that's coming out of those, which is really incredible, and he's super excited to make wines with them. All right, so now into the reds. That's what we're known for. So Matt's going to take you through the Alexander Valley Cabernet Sauvignon. So this is more our approachable style of cab, and then our flagship, the Scion.
Thank you, Rob. The 2021 Alexander Valley Cabernet Sauvignon. It's Cabernet Franc up there, I think, right now.
Oh, my bad.
So the difference between Alexander Valley Cabernet Sauvignon and the Scion, as Rob alluded to, is the approachability of it. And so this is an equally complex wine as the Scion, but we do a little bit different blending with it to sort of accentuate the fruit more and bring that more to the forefront and really make it a little bit more approachable tannin wise. So this would be sort of our most fruit forward and most approachable Cabernet that we make upon release. I think this really represents Alexander Valley Cab at its best. For me, I always get a lot of dark fruits. So you see in the notes, boysenberry, blackberry, plum. We actively blend for that. And you might say, well, how do you do that? So what we do when you have Cabernet Sauvignon, it sort of has two components to it. It has a black fruit note to it, and it can have sort of an herbal, loamy, soily, kind of that sort of side of it. And so by blending certain other varietals into the Cabernet, we can accentuate that fruit part of it more. So with the Alexander Valley Cabernet, we blend Malbec into it and we blend higher proportions of it. And that really changes the fruit dynamic of the wine and how it expresses itself. So it sort of takes that loamy, soily kind of, or maybe touch of tobacco leaf, sort and that pushes that down and it really pushes the fruit up in it. If you have it side by side with the Scion, you'll really notice it. And what we really want to do is accentuate kind of that fresh, fun fruit that comes out of Alexander Valley Cab that sometimes is not accentuated in a way that we think it can be. So that's a conscious decision for us. I think this wine is always, medium, probably full-bodied, but has that kind of silky, sweet tannin to it. And if you know, these wines, they get better as they age out. So if you have it upon release now, it's going to be really nice and supple. Wait 6 months and have a few more bottles, and then you'll see how nice it gets. But this wine is really made to be drank now and throughout kind of release. And this is also one of my favorite wines just for like stuff right off the grill. So if you've got steak, burgers, anything like that right off the grill, this is the perfect wine for that. It just has that really nice tannin profile that seems to go really well with a number of different kind of food items right off the grill. You can have it with like hearty chicken, burgers, any of that stuff. And so you'll notice in the varietal components, we blend this down to 75% Cabernet Sauvignon. It does have Petit Verdot in it, and Petit Verdot really brings in that kind of sultry. We'll have a Petit Verdot single varietal later, so you can see what it does to the wine, but it brings in that like sultry dark black fruit. But it also, Petit Verdot has like a floral component to it. So it really adds this like floral pop to the wine. And then Malbec just brings in gobs of red fruit, juicy red fruit. I mean, it's like hibiscus, rhubarb, raspberries, and strawberries mixed in a blender. Like that's what Malbec brings. And so when you blend that all up, really what you do is you kind of tone down that sort of that underbelly of cab that wants to be a little bit more tobacco leaf and herbal and just pop that fruit up. So for me, right now I'm getting a lot of fruit. You do get a touch of that kind of like that herbal thing, but that's Cabernet in its nature. And so I love that, but it's just showing a lot of fruit and a lot of jamminess. And then the Scion, which we'll get into in a minute, is our flagship. And so that's a whole step up in structure in tannin. But this Cabernet Sauvignon, particularly this vintage here, I think really shows what our estate can do. And this all comes from the hillside. So when you're up at the Scion house and you're staring at those vines on the hill there, that's all the Alexander Valley Cab and the Scion. That's where it's coming from. So that soil there, it's about 400 feet, 300 to 400 feet right in there, just off the valley floor. It just starts to get really well drained. It's a completely different soil type. And as Rob alluded to, part of what we do when we make these cabs is we're really kind of holding back the water on them so that the berries are really, really small. And it's really that that juice to skin ratio in the berries that makes for really concentrated, rich wines. So the bigger the berry, the more juice you have in it to the skin ratio, if that makes sense. And so when you crush them all up and ferment them, you have a lot of juice for the skin if they're big berries. But if you're really, really tiny berries, there's not that much juice to the skin, and the skin's where all the goodies are. So that's sort of, I guess, our little secret to success for our Alexander Valley cabs. And on the property, you notice that we kind of dovetail between the valley floor and the hillside. So the valley floor is perfect for our Chardonnays and our Sauv Blanc. And then you get up in the low bench there and we have our cab. So this Cabernet Sauvignon, as well as the Scion, is aged for 24 months. It's really about how we consciously blend and how we present our blends, really kind of showcases how the final wine shows up. So I hope you enjoy it. This is one of my favorites so far out of the gate.
There's a question, Matt, and it is regarding the replant. They were saying it's from James. He says, is the replant being done in a staggered approach such that the quantity of cases produced will not be impacted significantly?
Yeah, great question. It is. There's an economy of scale to these types of things. So if you rip out too much all at once, it's a huge financial commitment. And so every time you rip out a block, you lose 3 years where you're not generating any revenue because you don't have any grapes to sell. So if you're to rip out most of your property, then you would lose revenue for 3 years while you're putting money into it to get it up to speed. So we typically handle these things in like anywhere from 16ths to eighths to quarters. I think we're on a quarter, about 25 to 30% is getting replanted. Most of that has to do with the age of the vines. So most of these vines are approaching 40 years old. And what happens in that time is that your yield starts to go down and your cost of farming is sort of inversely affecting it. So at some point you have to make a decision. Okay, we're not getting the yield we used to get off of it, but our farming costs continue to rise. So we need to replant. So we're doing about roughly a quarter to a third. I can't remember the exact number in the next kind of 4 years. So you'll see sort of a lot of new vines as you come out to visit. And before you know it, it'll look just like it did before. But we're really excited because as vines get older, they do get a little bit more tired and they tend to, their fruit quality tends to shift a little bit. So some of the new vines that are coming in, the fruit that's coming in looks fantastic. So we're really excited about it.
Yeah, I'll also mention that for our case production, we will not be affected whatsoever. We only take 7% of our fruit and the rest we sell to main wineries throughout Sonoma and Napa. So we still have plenty of grapes. Just during the replant, there might be a couple years where instead of sourcing it from this one vineyard, you source it from another. And during that time or in advance, Matt and Dan have already been working on another vineyard to get it up to par, if you will, to get it up to that high fruit quality where we can source from a different vineyard from that year rather than the other one because the other one's getting replanted. Even a lot of the well-known wineries or wines like your Screaming Eagle or the Howell Mountains of the world, those top tier quality fruit, there's going to be a point in time throughout that wineries or wine's life where you're going to source it from a different vineyard. And that's just what happens when you're making wine. So,
yeah. And I forgot to mention
nothing to worry about.
I forgot to mention we recommended pairing this with artisan salami or prosciutto. And I like that pairing because there's fat in those both of those. The prosciutto has that little kind of white band of fat around it, and the salami, has all that fat in the middle. But that fattiness, that creaminess in the fat really helps with the tannin profile on the wines. And so for me, that kind of salami prosciutto with that white band of fat is really, really good with a wine like this. That's sort of medium full body tannin. They go really well together. So if you have some with you and you want to try it with this wine, take a bite of it, the salami, and then take a sip of the wine. And you'll notice it not only does it change the way the wine tastes, but it changes how it smells too, which is really cool. And that's, I think, one of the funnest parts about pairing these things together.
You want to lead off with the Scion? I'll tell you the story about it, and then I'll hand it off to Matt. But our Scion, I'm sure everybody knows this wine. This is our flagship wine. So when my dad Fred, alongside his brother and 2 sisters, they came together to start the winery. They wanted to name their first wine something, and they agreed on the name Scion. So Scion means family descendant, and then it's also the shoot grafted to a rootstock of a vine. So we think of Robert Young as the founder. So the rootstock, and then his offshoots are the Scions, his four kids. And that when we built our new tasting room up on the hill, what, 6, 7 years ago now, they named it the Scion House. So it represents the family.
Yeah. And this wine, this is the flagship for Robert Young, the Scion. It's a Bordeaux blend. And to an extent, the Alexander Valley Cab is too, but we don't celebrate it the same way because, as far as being a Bordeaux blend, because this wine is all about complexity and just really trying to hone the best Alexander Valley Cab Bordeaux blend we can. And so you'll notice some immediate differences. And if you have two glasses, put the AV Cab and the Scion side by side and just smell them and taste them. The Scion, really what you get with this wine is we're trying to blend to preserve some of that Cabernet character. They call it that wild, I don't know, they call it in French called sauvage, but that's wild character where it's got that earthy, loamy tobacco leaf, maybe a little dried herb. All that stuff is part of the varietal. And what you can do is really blend to create more layers there and keep that as part of it. And I think that those wines are always more aromatically complex and they tend to show better longer as they age. Where the fruity wines, they tend to lose their fruit a little bit over time and then they just sort of become one or two notes. These wines that have layers with baker's chocolate and herbs and loam and soil and graphite and just currants and black cherries, that stuff just gets better as it ages. And so lots of like aroma texture, like flavor texture in these wines. They can be pretty big upon release. They're a full body Cabernet, so definitely a step up in profile in your mouth, as opposed to Alexander Valley Cab. This to me is a rich, full bodied, estate grown Cabernet. And so you'll notice if you look at the varietal numbers on it, it's 75% Cab. It's 11% Petit Verdot, 9% Merlot, 2.5% Cab Franc, which we don't put into the Alexander Valley Cab, and then a little bit of Malbec. So this is really heavy on the Petit Verdot, Merlot, Cab, and a little bit on Cab Franc. And what that does is really sort of round out the complexity aromatically and flavor wise. But this wine is grown in the same area. So really what we're showing you is how you can blend consciously to change styles. And so this wine is sort of, we're not trying to accentuate the fruit as much. We're trying to make a completely rounded aroma profile. And we're not trying to blend to soften the tannins as much. We're trying to make this wine, it's approachable now, but I think it's one that ages really nicely too. And so this wine is really the wine that you want to do with your osso buco or your grilled lamb or your lamb chops. I mean, you think that big, hearty, rich stuff off the grill, or just those braised stews. This is where it's at. This thing is just begs for that. And I think you get a nice kind of style difference. So you see the more approachable style of Alexander Valley, and then you step up to this. Now we've been in our flagship Bordeaux, and it's much more structure, much more complexity in terms of aromatic and sort of flavor profile. So a wine that still needs to grow into itself, but really showing kind of where it's going to go.
Matt, what would you recommend for our red wines? Which of our wines would go great with vegetarian dishes or pescatarian? We have a question from Frank.
Yeah, I would definitely go more towards the whites with that. So pescatarian, I would do Pinot Blanc, Viognier, definitely our Chardonnays if it's like flaky whitefish or like scallops, things of that nature. If you've got like those fresh summer salads, like with the caprese or like those ones that aren't heavy vinegar salads but super fresh, with like mozzarella and cucumber and tomato, Sauv Blanc, rosé all day long. It's kind of rule of thumb is the creamier the dish is, the more buttery it is, the richer it is. I'd go up towards the Chardonnays and the Viognier. Things that are a little bit lighter, fresher, but maybe have some creamy texture to it. Pinot Blanc and Viognier are probably good. and then the really fresh kind of, summer stuff that you pick out of your garden and you just whip together and put some herbs in there with fresh herbs. That stuff's great with rosé and Sauv Blanc.
What about reds?
Just the entire
So,
red portfolio? Or
no. If you like reds and you want to have, fit like I feel like our salmon, or sorry, salmon. If you had salmon, you wanted to pair a red with it. Where would you lean? I feel like I would probably lean towards the Cab Franc, maybe even the Merlot, or like our Thomas Meek would be a lighter Cabernet that might.
Yeah, yeah, I think you nailed it. I think all those are good, and Cab Franc is probably the one I would highlight as being the probably the best fit for that. Um, Stylistically, our wines are have structure to them. Most of them are medium to full body, the reds, and most of them probably fall in the full body. So there's just a certain proportion of dishes that just inherently won't work with our wines, the red wines, but there are like the Cab Franc will definitely work with salmon. It's got a kind of a medium body texture to it, and I think it'll work really nice with the salmon.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll be honest. I mean, Matt knows, and Karen and B, who was our wine club manager, she's actually listening in. I eat a lot of chicken, and I know for a fact that red wine is typically not the best, for chicken. But how I think about it is, I'm going to drink what I want to drink, and I'm going to eat what I want to eat, regardless of how perfect, they pair together. And I think that's probably the reality for most people. There's, oftentimes I want to have the perfect pairing, but sometimes I'm like, I really want this meal and I really want to drink this. So that's what I'm going to do.
It's true. And for those of you that don't know, Rob eats chicken and rice every day. So
yeah, pretty much. I have a lot, I give a little flexibility here and there, but we'll wait till Saturday. Okay.
That's right. That's right.
All right. All right. I wanted Matt to talk about our caves. Oops. For you guys. So if you didn't know, there's a whole cave system underneath the Scion house. It's because we're sitting up on a hill. If you know where our old tasting room is, which I see a lot of our members in here who I actually met back in the day when I was working down there in that little tasting room, it was right to the right of that white barn where we make the wine. And we've expanded it quite a bit. So Matt.
Yeah, it's so we had an original cave that was attached, not attached, but it essentially fed into the winery. So the whole idea with having a cave system is it's really easy sustainability wise. You don't have to air condition them. They just kind of hang out between 57 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit year round. And it's really great because if we were to age those barrels in a building, we would have to chill that building down. So once you actually spend the capital to dig the hole in the ground, those barrels sit and there's a high humidity in the cave too, which helps with evaporation. So when you're aging barrels in the cave, typically we have to go and top those barrels up every 4 to 6 weeks. And what that means is that if we fill the wine up to the very, very top of the barrel, so there's no room for any more wine in there, put a bung in it, and then we come back 6 weeks later, it's going to be down like that much. So there's a natural wicking or evaporation that happens. So if you have a higher humidity in the cave, what that does is it slows that down. It doesn't allow it to happen as fast. So they're just sort of the perfect environment for wine. It's really unbelievable how well the humidity and the temperature underground work for wine aging. Turns out there's another with all the wildfires that have been coming through. It also helps to age your barrels in the cave because we don't have to worry about losing them in a structure. So it's been a really kind of new development for caves that people are really eyes wide open with that after the few wildfires that have come through. But as we grow as a brand, we're growing very slowly and all of our wines sold up top. But in the last couple of years, we were just completely pinched for space. And if any of you had been in the caves before we did this expansion, there was not room for another barrel in there. It was completely stacked. And so we just finished this in November, and what this does is connects to our old cave, but it's a much bigger profile. So when you go inside, instead of the ceilings being 13 feet tall, they're 25 feet tall and they're 22 feet wide. So it's almost like a warehouse underground. And part of it actually sits under the Scion house right now, which is really cool. So if you next time you come through, make sure that you get a chance to see that. But it allows us to sort of hit our goals of growing eventually kind of that 10,000 case range, 10 to 12,000 case range. And stay here all on the property and stay kind of in the hill there. So it's a really cool thing for us. And one last note, we ferment our Chardonnay. We used to ferment our Chardonnay in barrel in the winery, but because we're growing, we had to add more tanks. And so we lost that space. So where Rob's kind of moving that cursor around there, we built a fermentation room in the cave, which is logistically super crazy because it's carbon dioxide. So we have like sensors in there and we have fans and they shoot CO2 out of the cave through the ceiling and draw on fresh air and it's chilled. It's an elaborate system and really, really cool. And I think we're the only ones that I know of that have it. So we'll do all of our barrel fermenting Chardonnay in a separate room in the cave now. So it's fun. I hope you guys get a chance to see it soon.
Yeah. Yeah. Whenever you guys do come out, definitely give us a call. We'll set up a reservation for you. And just mention you are on the virtual tasting with Rob and you want to go check out the cave, and I'm happy to put that together for you. All right, we're gonna move on to the Cabernet Franc.
Cabernet Franc. Okay. For those of you that have that with you, we recommended the aged cheddar for that. So I'd recommend getting into that now because it's beautiful with cheddar. But the Cabernet Franc, a little bit of kind of fun fact history is that Cabernet Franc is actually the father to Cabernet Sauvignon. So Cabernet Sauvignon was made by a cross between Cabernet Franc and Sauvignon Blanc, believe it or not. Those two varieties crossed, boom, and you got Cabernet Sauvignon. So Cabernet Franc you see a lot of what you see in Cabernet Sauvignon, but to me, it's more restrained. It's a little bit more elegant. So I'm going to pour some. I'm a little bit behind here and do chatty. But the Cabernet Franc, to me, is more medium bodied, I would say, than full bodied like the Cabernet. So Cabernet kind of hits me with tannin. It sort of hits you all around the inside of the mouth. Where the Cabernet Franc comes in, it's a little bit more elegant, a little bit more balanced. And I would say it tends to have a little bit of higher acid profile than the Cabernet Sauvignon and tends to be more aromatically lifted. So I get a lot of the stuff that I get in Cabernet in spades in Cabernet Franc. So I think of when you think of tobacco leaf, almost like clove or like really wet tobacco. Like my grandfather used to smoke like a tobacco that with a pipe and he used to pack it with that wet tobacco that smelled like cherries. It just smells like all of those really exotic profiles. This is a wine that you don't typically see a lot on its own, and there's a few reasons for that. One is that if it's grown on the valley floor, typically it can get really, really vegetal. So think of like the most intense green bell pepper that you've ever smelled, and that's what Cab Franc on the valley floor can be like. When you get up on the hillside where the soil's different and a little bit more limiting, it tends to make this beautiful aroma profile. Dried currants, black tea, wet tobacco leaf, soil, earth, all these crazy things, iron, like these things that you can just smell in it that don't exist when it's on the valley floor. So that's one reason we actually plant it on the hillside. And the other reason is that a lot of times it just gets gobbled up with blending into Cabernet Sauvignon to make it more complex. So we actually save a bit of it and blend it out, or sorry, make it on our own. So this is a unique wine in that it's very varietally complete and complex to me, and it shows the variety, I think, in its best light. So I've had some of those wines that are grown on the valley floor that can be really vegetal, and to me, they're just sort of not putting its best foot forward for as a varietal. And when you have something where it's planted up on the hillside and it's just in this perfect environment in a great area for growing it, you kind of see the full development of the varietal. And so for me, it just got all of that going on. And this is a young wine for me, but it's all there and it's going to get better and better and better. So really fun wine. I love Cabernet Franc. For me, it's the one that is the most fun to pull out. And a lot of people that aren't familiar with Cabernet Franc, they always think it's either a cab or they're really confused on Merlot. What is this? And it's just one of those wines that really sort of hits all the notes for me. So hope you guys enjoy it. Have it with the cheddar, that kind of richness of the cheddar and this acid and tannin really work great together.
Yeah, I think this is a great summer wine as well, and even right there on our pairing, salmon. So if you want to have fish, we'd recommend that. We have handful of people that, maybe I'll say a lot of people, but a lot of people come to Robert Young for our Cabernets, of course, the Bordeaux's, Chardonnays. But sometimes there's, people in the group that they're along for the ride and they love Pinot Noir. And this is the one that I always bring out, and they love it because it has that familiar red fruit, the cherry, cranberry, raspberry, and a little lighter bodied for our standards. So, all right, now the Petit Verdot. This is, Matt will tell you about this, but this is something we used to make years and years ago. We've been growing it for a long time. If those of you that have been with us for a long time, you may remember we made a port Petit Verdot, like probably, I don't know, 20 years ago or so. Here and there, I'll have some people bring it in and share it with us, which is pretty cool. But I'm super excited personally about this one.
Okay, 2022 Petit Verdot. You'll notice under it says Star Springs Ranch. And this is the first wine that we have bottled, not on our estate, our Robert Young property. It's actually a property in Alexander Valley that's very close to us. And you might be asking, well, why are you guys doing that? And so we bottled Petit Verdot last in 2017 because we outstripped what Petit Verdot we had to bottle on its own, blending it into our Cabernet Sauvignons. We only had a small amount on the estate. And those wines have been blended together for so long from our state that I'm really comfortable with how those work and those pieces go together. When we started replanting, we actually took out that Petit Verdot because we needed to replant it. So we had a hole in our portfolio, not only for our cabs, but also we just didn't have any Petit Verdot to blend into anything. So we actually went to a property that's really close to us, Star Springs Ranch. They're up kind of between 1,000 and 1,500 feet. Very similar story to us. The property's been farmed since 1860, I believe. I think it's 2,500 acres in total. I think there's 160 acres or more planted up there. Very, very cool site. And it's, as the crow flies, it's probably like a 3 or 4 minute fly from Robert Young. If you're going to drive the kind of winding roads, it's like a 10-minute drive or so. But we bottled the 2022 Petit Verdot from Star Springs Ranch as sort of our first non kind of Robert Young estate wine as we get through this transition period. The reason why we chose to do that is I thought that this wine particularly showed the essence of Petit Verdot. So like Petit Verdot is such a weird variety, and there's sort of a reason why you don't see a lot of them bottled on their own. They're incredibly dark, incredibly rich, and incredibly big structured. So what you see in this wine is what we get when we blend it into the Cabernet Sauvignon. So it brings a lot to the party. It sort of comes in with its elbows out and pushes around a little bit. And so it's also really cool because it's really pretty. So when I smell Petit Verdot, one of the classic aromatic descriptors of it is violets. And I'm actually gonna grab mine now, but it has a lot of dark fruits, so blackberries, boysenberries, a lot of richness to it. but one of the aromatic descriptors is violets, and I get that in spades in this. It just has that really floral violet note to it. So you have this thing, this varietal that's super rich and super tannic, but then it has this really like cool, like almost floral feminine side to it. That's just sort of contrast. It's a really cool variety. But it's a mouthful. It's really big structure. This is just what the variety is. And I think a lot of times it can be a little uncomfortable for people to bottle those on their own, which is why you don't see it a lot. I think this wine is drinking exactly how a Petit Verdot should drink right now. It's got a lot of structure, a lot of richness, and I think in the next couple of years you'll really see this thing come together into this just really nice thing you can put your arms around. But this is exactly what I would expect out of it, and exactly what I would expect out of a typical Petit Verdot varietal wine.
Yeah. Don and Bill, I think this would be, you guys said you love the Bob's Burn Pile. This might be up there with it because it's just that big, bold wine that you expect like the Bob's. All right, I'm gonna share with you guys. So that is the wines. I'm gonna talk about a couple more things. One is our events. And the reason I want to talk about our events at Robert Young's, we do a lot of fun events, and being in the tasting room, hosting so many of you, I'll be talking to you and you'll be like, oh, we came the weekend after our Bob's Burn Pile, or we came the weekend after this, or we didn't know about it. And I always tell everybody, I say, anytime you're planning a trip to wine country, always give us a call and see what we have going on. Because as much as fun as it is to do a tasting, we have these other events that you can tack on top of that. For example, we're doing an event called Merlot and Oysters. And Merlot or Malone is one of our white wines. It's a white Burgundy. We're one of 5 in the US that have this wine. It's incredibly rare. And we wanted to showcase this wine. So we're actually partnering with another winery, another winemaker named Cara Groom, who's a good family friend. And she's actually one of the wineries that buys our fruit, and she makes a Merlot with our fruit. So we wanted to have this event to showcase the wine and educate people about it. It's very fun. It's going to be casual. There's oysters obviously involved and some other light bites. For those of you that love country music, Songwriters in Paradise, it's a 4-day event. You can just get a ticket for one night if you want to come see us. And they're Grammy Award-winning singer-songwriters out of Nashville that fly in for this event. And they've written a lot of the mainstream songs that you'll hear on the radio, which is really cool. So it's really cool to hear the stories behind the songs. The lobster boil, if you are into Chardonnay, we're doing 2 of those that year. That's up at the Scion House. Of course, the Bob's Burn Pile release dinner. That is, I keep saying one of my favorites, but it is one of my favorites. We have about 130 people. Most fly in for this event because it's over the top. So it's a 4-course dinner paired with our wines with the family. We have about a family member at every single table that's involved in the business, more than are just pictured, that are behind the scenes, that live on the property or involved one way or another. We do a river cruise with our wine club members as well. This is our 5th one. We've been to Bordeaux, we've been to Burgundy, and this year we're going to Portugal. Brian and Katie that are participating today, I was just with them last year in Normandy, which was a blast. But we're doing that again, so I'm super looking forward to that. And then another thing is our craft your own blend. So Matt and I thought how everyone, loves wines, but they don't really know why you blend a Bordeaux blend and why a Cabernet Franc or Malbec and, goes into that wine. So we do a blending seminar in our caves where he walks you through all that. And then you get to blend your own bottle that will cork and you can walk out the door with it, which is really cool. And then the holiday pickup party as well. But as a thank you for joining us today, we're doing a special offer because if you want to get the wines back home, we're doing a shipping special. So it's $20 ground shipping on 3 bottles. There's complimentary ground on 6 or more. And then if you do live in a state that is scorching hot, we do have to overnight it, but we'll give you half off. So it's essentially the price of ground. You can use those codes there to take advantage of it. And what I will do following this, you can take a picture of it on the screen. I can also email you guys as well. You can just go on the website, put that code in, you'll get the discount. You also can reach out to me and I can share some of the other wines with you as well. But not here. And I just thought of this and I'm going to do it. So we have everyone who joined us today is a member. So I just thank you guys for your support and supporting our family business. We've had this place for a very, very long time. So it means the world to me for you guys tuning in today and continued supporting us. But we have a guest house on property. I'm looking at it right out the window. It's right behind the main house. And what I want to do is I'm going to offer that to one of you today. You're going to get to stay there for 2 nights. There's a pool, a kitchen. It's right behind the family guest house. And I have a number written down right here on my computer. So you pick a number 1 through 100, and whoever gets the closest to that number, you're going to get 2 nights at the Robert Young guest house. Sorry, Matt, it's off script.
I was going to ask, yeah.
But it's something we don't offer. It's a private guest house. We don't offer it a whole lot. There's some of our members have stayed there, but it's really our personal family guest house. And lately we wanted to share it with our members. So we understand you come all this way, and I thought it would be so cool for you guys to hang out and see us. So I'm going to give you another minute. And like I said, I got this note right here.
Well, you're holding it up, Rob.
I know.
You can see it.
Can you?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. All right. Well, the number. I think you just saw it.
Yep.
I think you saw it, Rob. So you're going to have to be canceled from that. The number is number 17. So the winner, if I'm not mistaken, was right up top. 19. Frank.
It was 17, right, Rob? Rob Tinney.
Rob Tinney. Rob,
Pick
did you
17.
be honest with me, Rob? Did you see my number on the screen? All right, heck, what we're going to do, we'll give it to both of you.
Love it.
All right, Rob, Frank, both of you guys are getting 2 nights at the Robert Young guest house.
Yay.
It's awesome.
All right, well,
Thank you very much, Robert. That's fantastic.
you're welcome. Yeah, I'll reach out to you guys after this. Anyways, thank you guys so much for joining us. I hope this was fun. We'd love your feedback as well. If this is something you want to do in the future. I know it's a small group, but I thought it was nice to at least see our faces because we probably won't see you guys for a while. But like I said, when you come out here, give me a call and we'll set something else up for you. So
well done. Thank you, guys. Really well done.
thank you.
Thank you.
So that wraps it up. I'll open it up to free chat if people want to talk.
Matt, stop telling us to decant the wine for 3 to 4 hours. It's perfectly delicious after 30 minutes. Stop it. You're making me feel guilty.
I just want you to enjoy it when it's perfect, you know? Yeah. Appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
I just wanted to say, if anybody's going to the Bob's Burn Pile dinner evening, have a wonderful time. We would love to be there this year. We won the last time we were there. We were the furthest away in New Jersey. And unfortunately, we're going to be in Sedona, Arizona that week. So if anybody's going, have a wonderful time.
Thanks, Rob.
Go Jersey.
Hey,
Yep,
appreciate.
Frank, where in Jersey are you?
I'm in East Rutherford, right underneath the Giant Stadium or MetLife
Oh, yeah,
Stadium.
you're right there. Yeah, I'm in Summit.
Oh, okay, cool.
We're
Hey,
in Millington.
Appreciate everyone's hard work. I am in Florida where it's a sweltering 95. Maybe next time show some more chilled whites or a rosé. But thank you guys did a phenomenal job. Appreciate it.
Thank
And
you.
I can't wait to use the guest house.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, you let me know when you want to come out, and we'll, as long as it's available, we'll check our schedule and we can
Thanks.
book it for you. So
Thank you.
Hey, Rob, the Blankenships look like they're a fun group. Where do they live? Can we drive to them?
Jeff,
Alexander City, Alabama.
We'll be there at like 3 in the morning. We're gonna leave now.
See you next week for the Hillsburg High School graduation.
Hey, Rob, are you? Why isn't Karen putting her video on? What's going on? Can we call her out?
we call her out. She might want to say something, but hi, Karen.
I got to get my video off.
Sure.
I don't know why it's not coming on. Oh, hello,
There she
everybody. I'm in the office next to Rob. He comes through to cook his chicken every lunchtime. But anyway, I just wanted to thank everybody. I mean, you guys have no idea. I know that there's a lot of you that travel to come see, wine country and see us, but you guys have no idea how nice it is for us to see all of the faces that we know so well and, don't get a chance to see as often as we'd like. So thank you so much.
This was a fun event, and thank you guys for hosting. But those of you in the winery, well, I don't understand the virtual backgrounds. You have great backgrounds to start with. You don't need virtual backgrounds.
Exactly.
You would think so, but I'm in my office, and this whole back desk right here is covered in paperwork and liquor and wine. So I tried to hide all that from you. So I think we'll wrap it up here. We're doing another one if you want to run it back. We have another group for those on the West Coast.
You may want
Rob-
to change the 17, though.
What's that?
You may want to change the 17
What does
for
that
the
mean?
next group so we don't guess.
Oh, yeah. No, definitely. Definitely, yeah. I was like,
Hey,
I didn't
Rob.
realize my screen was going to be, I got a new camera. You can see it everywhere. So
Last question, Rob. Is
Yeah.
there a secret door under the Scion house that drops into the new cellar?
it didn't happen this time, but that's on my to-do list for, hopefully the next 30 years we can pull that off. That's on my list.
Yeah.
My dad couldn't do it, but if I could do it someday, it would be pretty cool just to pull you, get you out of your seat and just take you around the back, and we just take the elevator to the back cave, if you will.
Love it.
That'd be pretty cool. So I'll keep you posted.
Fun event. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, thank you guys very,
Thanks,
very
Matt.
much.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you, guys.
And
Thank you.
hopefully we'll
See
see
you
you
guys.
out here sooner than later.
Yep.
All right, bye y'all.
Bye.